The message came in at 11:18 p.m. while I was standing in the kitchen, holding a steaming cup of tea, staring into the darkness beyond the window of my apartment in Phoenix, Arizona. A soft ping from my phone made me frown. I assumed it was a late-night work email and glanced at the screen. But the first line made my blood slow. "I'm not coming back. I've found someone who makes me feel alive again. I've had your things moved out. Don't call." Right below that was a screenshot of a bank transfer. $96,000. Moved from our joint savings account into one under the name Emily Carlson. No explanation, no warning call, not even a decent goodbye. I set the tea down. Steady hands, no rush. On the outside, I may have looked like a calm man in the middle of a storm, but in my head, everything flipped. After more than 12 years of marriage, Emily had erased herself from my life with one swipe of her finger. No words, just a cold truth, framed in a screenshot of a bank transaction. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the wedding photo still hanging on the wall by the oven. We were standing under a wooden arch, smiling as if life couldn't go wrong. I was 43 that day. She was 36. Beautiful, confident, and the kind of woman who lit up a room. Now that photo only had one of us standing still. Me. The other had deleted me with a financial command. Emily had told me the week-long trip to San Diego with her close friends was a break from the stress at the art studio. I believed her. I even reminded her to pack the vitamin fizz and sunscreen. While I worried about my wife's health, she was likely wrapped around another man in some beachside hotel, spending our money. I'm an internal auditor for a hospital system. Nothing flashy, but I know how to read red flags. She changed her spending habits, scheduled trips alone, started locking her phone when texting, and stopped asking me about my job. I saw it, but I said nothing. I thought silence made me strong. Turns out, I was just the last fool to leave the party. I opened the desk drawer and pulled out an old phone, one Emily didn't know I still had. It held a backup finance tracking app fully separate from our main accounts, a precaution I installed when I started noticing irregularities in her handling of our shared expenses 3 months ago. I opened the app and logged in. Everything was clear. She didn't just take the money, she had been planning her exit for a while. I didn't text back, didn't call, didn't ask why. I opened my contacts and dialed Eric, my closest friend and financial consultant I'd worked with 6 years ago on an internal fraud case. It rang 3 times. "What do you need at this hour, David?" His voice was groggy but not annoyed. "The contingency plan. Turn it on," I said. It started. The apartment was so quiet now I could hear the wall clock ticking in the living room. I didn't know when Emily had decided to leave me, but I knew one thing for certain: she wasn't going to like what came next. I'd started sensing Emily had checked out emotionally months ago. Probably around the evening she mentioned going to a weekend meditation retreat in Sedona with her group of friends. She told me, "You don't need to come, it's just breathing and raw vegetables." When she turned away, I remember very clearly, her eyes didn't meet mine. Like I no longer belonged to her world. At first it was just weekends, then whole weeks. She called it me time, said everyone needed space. I used to believe that, or wanted to, because it was the least painful way to avoid the truth. What made me suspicious wasn't the trips, it was the receipts. Expensive shoes from brands she'd never looked at before. French perfume. Designer sunglasses worth over $1,000. None of it ever showed up in our home. When I asked, she laughed. "I bought them for friends, no big deal." I didn't argue. I just took note. She started taking her phone into the bathroom, something she never used to do. Every time I entered the room, a call had just ended. Late-night texts came in, phone screen down or on silent. I once tried to flip it over while she slept, but it required facial recognition. At some point, she'd changed the password. The more I pretended not to notice, the quieter something inside me became, like a room where every sound echoes too loud. My birthday fell on a Even a simple meal she cooked like every other year, but the apartment was dark, empty. I toasted a peanut butter sandwich and sat in front of the TV, watching the clock tick as if I were counting down to a moment I couldn't name. The next day, Emily came home in a rush, hugged me from behind with arms scented in new perfume. "I'm so sorry, babe, I totally forgot." She placed a luxury gift box on the table. Inside was a brand new smartwatch worth more than a month's rent. "Let me make it up to you," she said, smiling, but her eyes never met mine. That night, I didn't wear the watch. I put on headphones, opened my laptop, and logged into my personal financial system, the software I once wrote to manage internal assets for medical organizations in California. I had quietly modified it for personal use, tracking spending Emily assumed I never noticed. Everything was linked through hidden tracking tags, even Uber rides and spa payments in La Jolla. I saw the pattern: small transactions, growing larger, funneled into a sub-account labeled EC. Notes read, "Wellness Investment" and "Personal Collaboration Support." One of them was a transfer of $4,800 to a man named Ryan Hale, not a company, a person. That name started showing up more. Round-trip airfare for two, from Phoenix to Los Angeles, a boutique hotel in Santa Monica, dinner reservations at a restaurant Emily had once mentioned from a lifestyle magazine. The pieces were forming a picture no one wants to star in. I dropped everything into a password-protected folder named Waverly, after the first street Emily and I ever lived on. I didn't know why I chose that name, only that it was the last place I remembered feeling like we were a team. I didn't sleep that night, just lay on the couch, listening to the hum of the AC, chest hollow. Not angry, not broken, just the stillness of knowing something had died long ago, and I'd finally received the death certificate. The next morning, I sent one text to Eric. "Everything you proposed last year. It's time." We had once discussed the financial risks of modern marriage when a colleague of Eric's lost nearly everything in a divorce. I never thought I'd need it, but I had saved the plan like a dagger hidden beneath a tux, hoping I'd never draw it. Then I stood up and made a strong espresso. I used to make two, today just one, and for the first time in months, I drank it all, and it didn't taste bitter. I left the apartment just before midnight. The Phoenix heat still clung to the night, but I felt cold. Not weather cold, the kind of cold that comes when something is permanently severed. The bond between me and Emily, what I once stayed late at work for, skipped vacations for, saved every cent for, to fund her studio, was now reduced to negative numbers on a banking app. I parked beside an empty park and reclined the seat. Then I called Jason, my younger brother, 38, a data security analyst for a major telecom in Denver. He knew I didn't call after 10 unless it was serious. He picked up on the second ring. "What's going on?" he asked, alert like he'd been expecting the call. I stared at a sweat mark on the steering wheel and answered slowly. "It's time. That plan from last March, activate it." Jason was quiet for a few seconds, then exhaled. "Emily?" "Exactly." I immediately sent him the transaction screenshot and the full activity log from my private financial software. Jason didn't ask anything else. For over a decade, we'd worked side by side on data recovery and fraud investigations. But this time, the culprit wasn't some shady company or foreign hacker. This time, it was my wife. Just 1 hour later, Jason sent back a concise encrypted report. Every joint account, savings, credit, even the secondary cards Emily used for personal spending, had been completely frozen through a security channel he'd quietly set up for me. The $96,000 transfer was still flagged as pending review, and I could block it if I moved before 8 a.m. I drove to attorney Kendrick McMillan's office, the same lawyer who'd helped me in a finance case 2 years ago. My first email went out at 1:30 a.m. Kendra answered 10 minutes later. "Send every file. I'll draft the suit first thing tomorrow. Do you want a temporary no-contact order and asset protection?" I typed 2 words back. "Of course." Kendra isn't just sharp, she's steel when needed. The type no one sways with tears or cheap moral pleas. She knows exactly what financial loss through betrayal feels like. This time, I meant to stay within the law, right to the end. After emailing the documents, I stopped at an out-of-town gas station. I bought a soda, sat in the car, and watched my banking dashboard light up with alerts. Unauthorized access blocked. 2 failed attempts from an unknown device. Attempt to open new credit card in the name David Carson. IP, Santa Monica. Emily was already reacting. She thought she'd thrown the first punch, unaware I'd been preparing ever since the first bill showed another man's name. I logged into an old email account I once used for freelance work, no link to my current identity, and forwarded every money trail, screen grab, and detailed statement to the secure mailbox shared with Kendra and Jason. We didn't need many words. Our machine runs best in silence. Then I sent Emily one last text. I got your gift. Brace yourself for what's next. No threats, no insults, just facts. Minutes later, her name lit my screen. I let it ring out. Then again, and 3 more times. Finally, a text. What the hell are you doing? I can't pull cash. The cards don't work. What is happening? I locked the phone and said nothing. The dash clock read 4:02 a.m. The night wasn't over, but my part was. Now the law would speak. This time I wasn't just guarding money. I was guarding myself from the woman who once swore forever. The 6th call came while I was pumping gas at the Chevron on Roosevelt. Her name flashed, familiar number, ghost voice from the past. I let it die out. As before, no answer. I watched the digits climb on the pump, listened to the night wind scrape the roof. A text followed at once. David, what's going on? My cards declined, the account's empty, and the money I moved is locked. I don't understand. Still silent, I pulled up the warehouse address she'd texted when she bragged about moving my stuff out for convenience. Just a blunt string of letters. As if I were a tenant evicted, not a husband of 12 years. I drove to a West Side industrial park. Tall fence, cameras everywhere, a reception clerk with a Bluetooth earpiece eyes down on a monitor. I showed the code and my ID. He nodded, scanned, then pointed me to Unit B17. The door rolled up when I keyed in the code. Damp, dusty air spilled out. Inside, 2 gray plastic bins. I squatted and opened the first. A few shirts, old shoes, a scuffed leather bag, personal items, nothing more. The second held a beat-up laptop, a tangled charger, and a faded office towel. No wedding album, no first love letter Emily wrote during our Oregon trip, no pocket watch my father wore on his own wedding day, not one family photo, every trace of memory gone. I stood still a long time, grip tightening until my thumb ached. No anger, no pain, just the icy clarity that she hadn't merely left me, she meant to erase me as if I'd never existed. Back downtown, I stopped at a 24-hour cafe near ASU. By the window, I opened my laptop on the secure network Jason built. I logged into my custom analytics, this time not to tally losses, but to trace betrayal. I typed the name, Ryan Hale, the man who got $4,800 from Emily. The one she said made her feel alive. In seconds, the system showed Ryan owned a small photo studio in Tempe, already 3 times delinquent in 3 years, even sued for lease violations. Recently, the studio received a $32,000 transfer tagged brand restructuring support. Sender? Emily Carson. I leaned back, eyes half closed, not from fatigue, but to keep emotion out of my next move. The war wasn't for love anymore. It was a chess game, and I'd moved first. I drafted an email. Subject, unexplained funding investigation required. Attached the entire chain from Emily to Ryan, sent it to Kendra with a note. Potential grounds to expand the fraud file. I forwarded a copy to Jason with one question. Can we pinpoint the IP on these transfers? Need the real sender confirmed. The coffee went cold. I didn't drink it. Every step now came void of impulse, calculated. The plan was in motion. From here on, Emily wasn't just facing an ex-husband. She was facing the man she thought would never push back. And this time, I've got nothing left to lose. His name is Ryan Hale, 39, freelance photographer and part-time instructor at a community arts center in Tempe. I spent the entire next morning digging through every fragment on him, tax records, licenses, credit history, outstanding debts. His financial web was thin as dusty glass. One touch, it shatters. Hale Visuals Studio, the company under Ryan's name, had already received 2 asset recovery warnings for missing payments on leased equipment. In addition, he borrowed more than $64,000 from 3 different financial institutions within just 10 months, supposedly to expand digital services and advertising. What chilled me, most of those loans were co-signed by Emily Carson, listed as the borrower's wife. They aren't married. Yet with carefully engineered paperwork, Emily claimed a marital relationship to lock in lower rates and higher limits. She didn't just betray me emotionally. She put me, the legal husband, on the hook as a hidden guarantor for debts no one could control. One personal credit file for $23,000 spelled it out. Secured by marital assets. Dual income verified. Husband employed with Southwest Health System. That's my job. And the signature, smudged and distorted, looks a lot like mine. I printed the whole file, flagged the suspicious points, and sent it to Kendra with a note. Evidence of forged signature. Request immediate legal action. Less than 30 minutes later, Kendra called back, her tone as sharp as a blade cutting through pretense. We have enough to sue for credit fraud and misuse of marital status. I'll file to freeze every related asset. I want this taken all the way, I said. Not just for the money. She used me as a pawn to gamble on someone else's career. Kendra paused, then added, You should know, if Emily is prosecuted, Ryan won't walk free. They built this loan structure on false information. This isn't divorce anymore, David. This is financial crime. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Good. I've turned a blind eye long enough. That afternoon, Jason sent a brief follow-up report. Ryan Hale had been denied loans at 3 major banks due to a low credit score. Suddenly, one loan was approved, right after Emily signed with him. Part of the new studio equipment, worth nearly $47,000, was purchased under the company's name, but the initial funds came from a credit card tied to the joint account between Emily and me. A tangled money trail, yet obvious to people like Jason and me. I sat in my office, late-day sunlight hitting a photo from our Colorado trip 5 years ago. Emily beside me, gentle smile, arm around my shoulder as if nothing could break that bond. The irony. She used that very bond to collateralize a business dream with someone else. I slid the picture into a drawer and shut it. Then I opened my laptop and drafted a new email. Subject: marital status abuse, records for review. Attached was a PDF proving Emily had signed as wife on a loan for Ryan's studio, complete with a signature that looked falsified. I ended the message with one line. I don't permit anyone to use my name to bankroll someone else's dream. That evening, I went out for the first time in days. Not to escape, but to step out of the shadow Emily tried to bury me in. I headed to an old bar on McDowell Road where I'd spent the night before my wedding, back when I thought life was beginning anew. Now it's different. I'm not starting over. I'm reclaiming the life that was always mine. The next morning, wearing the slate blue shirt Emily once hated, I drove straight to Hale Visual Studio, Ryan's self-proclaimed top creative hub in Arizona, across social media. The facade had been repainted trendy white, a banner outside bragging, "Summer couple shoots, book now." I entered the lobby with a thick envelope in hand. The young receptionist glanced up with a robotic smile. "Do you have an appointment?" "No. Just tell your boss that Emily Carson's husband is here with information that could rewrite his financial future." Her face drained of color. She fumbled for the intercom without another word. Less than 2 minutes later, Ryan appeared in the glass doorway, taller than his photos, close-cropped hair, tight black tee, smoothie in hand. His eyes darted from the envelope to my face, then he flashed a "I know I'm charming" grin. "David Wright, Emily mentioned you. I think we can keep this civil." "Oh, I think the opposite," I answered, voice low and even. "We need to talk. Privately. Now." He nodded and led me to a sleek back office. Glass walls, minimalist furniture, all show. He shut the door, smile still glued on. I didn't sit. Instead, I dropped the envelope on his desk. Papers slid out. Transaction records, loan applications, contract copies, signature snapshots. "I've brought proof that Emily used my marital status to finance your entire creative empire." Ryan smirked. Emily's an adult. She makes her own choices. Not when they involve my legal assets, which she has no right to pledge. Any loan she signed as wife is secured by marital property, and she no longer has access to it. He stopped chewing gum. I went on, divorce has been filed, assets are frozen. Every loan you depend on will be reviewed once the guarantor conditions vanish. And I'm sure you know exactly how this studio's equipment was paid for. Ryan flipped through the pages, impatience fading to alarm as he saw my name tied to traceable assets. I didn't know she'd done that, he muttered. Seems there's a lot you don't know, I replied, hands in my pockets. No worries. The bank will enlighten you. When they call in the balance, you'll realize Emily isn't as wealthy as you think. She just knows how to paint a fat wallet using someone else's name. She said you didn't care about her, that you neglected her in your marriage. I let out a small laugh. Though she secretly used my status to sign risky loans, forge my name on papers, then funneled money to a man she's known less than a year? Romantic, isn't it? Ryan slumped into his chair, silent. I gathered the documents but left one photocopy on his desk. Show that to your lawyer. I'm not suing you. Yet. But if you or this studio use my name or old accounts again, everything changes. I turned to leave, then stopped at the door. One more thing. When Emily moved my stuff out, she took my father's pocket watch, the only thing I can't replace. Ryan looked at me, hesitated, then nodded. And I'll look into it. Good. If I get it back, I'll count it as the first time you fixed something without my money. I walked out without looking back. The sun outside was blazing, yet I felt strangely cool inside. To others, it probably looked like a small confrontation. I knew better. It was the first bell in a chain reaction about to crash down. And this time, I was the one ringing it. 3 days after meeting Ryan Hale, I got an email from a law firm called Benson and Graham, Emily's new counsel. Their message was blunt. Our client believes Mr. David Carson is deliberately obstructing, manipulating finances, and concealing income. If you do not provide full financial records within 48 hours, we will request an independent audit and expose serious professional violations. I smirked. Classic pressure play. Threaten scandal, offer no proof. I forwarded the email to Kendra with one line. Keep moving as planned. Within an hour, Kendra called, utterly unfazed. Old trick, David. They've got nothing. I, however, do. Go on. Our tracker from last year found at least 22 small transfers over 14 months, totaling more than $71,000. Moved from the joint account to a sub-account Emily labeled Studio Budget. That money then flowed into a business called Ryan Hale, LLC. I clenched the phone. Can we prove she sent it herself? Signed authorizations, internal emails, IP logs, all point to Emily. Worse, the notes don't match any business purpose. Some say early support, personal maintenance, unreported creative costs. Those won't survive any financial panel. I sighed. Not surprised, just caught in déjà vu. Like every recent move of hers was scripted while I played along. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. From an unknown number. The text read, "Knowing when to stop is wisdom. She deserves someone better. Don't make this uglier." No name, no avatar, but I recognized the style. Ryan. I didn't reply. I screenshotted it and dropped it into the encrypted group with Kendra and Jason. No need for words. He'd understand another language. Relentless financial scrutiny. An hour later, Kendra messaged back, supplemental civil suit drafted. Claims. Misuse of marital assets and unauthorized fund transfers. I'm also negotiating with the bank to freeze every account tied to Ryan Hale LLC, pending a temporary order. I typed 4 words. Do it. No delay. That evening, a courier knocked on my hotel door with an unmarked envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. David, this isn't how I wanted things. You were the one I trusted most, but you were cold, distant, and never understood my world. Ryan makes me feel valuable. I had no other choice. Please forgive me. Emily. I folded the letter and set it down, each word scratched like nails on a wall. A desperate bid for sympathy. We were far past forgiveness. Next morning, Kendra and I visited the notary to certify all evidence. While a bank lawyer reviewed the file, he muttered, "Ever seen anyone outsmart herself by making her husband a guarantor for the boyfriend's debts, then leaving such a clear trail?" I merely nodded. Everything was unfolding along a track Emily thought she controlled. She forgot, "I'm no longer the man who looks away." That afternoon, Arizona sunlight poured through the hotel window while Jason and I sat opposite each other in my makeshift war room. It was 2 white tables, 2 laptops, a whiteboard packed with notes. "You're sure about the cross-collateral loan?" I asked, eyes on the chart Jason had built. "100%, Jason nodded, tapping a few more commands. "Emily co-signed the final equipment loan for Ryan's studio, but the collateral isn't their assets, it's the house in your name." I was silent for a few seconds. I'd thought Emily using the title wife to borrow money was betrayal enough. Now she'd leveraged the career I'd built and even put the roof over my head up as security for another man's debt. "Do we have proof she hid this on purpose?" I asked. Jason leaned over and handed me a copy of the contract. On the last page was Emily's signature, and below it the line, "Marital asset consent confirmed." The space for me, blank. No signature, no notarization, just a faint note, to be added later. "A bank should never accept a file missing that signature," Jason said evenly. Emily and Ryan must have submitted doctored paperwork. I needed no more. All that night, Kendra and I compiled every record asset sheet's loan docs. Photos of the forged pages. By 9 o'clock the next morning, she filed an emergency asset freeze motion in Maricopa County Civil Court. The order was granted in just 4 hours. Every joint asset, studio, secondary credit cards, savings, investment accounts was locked at once. And my phone rang instantly. Emily's name flashed. I let it buzz 3 times before answering. "David?" Her voice shook. None of the old arrogance. "I'm here. My accounts, I can't withdraw anything. The cards are declined. I have to cover the studio rent this month. I have to take care of..." "Ryan," I cut in. "That's his name, right?" Silence. I kept my tone flat as a blade skimming a tabletop. "I haven't hurt you. I'm protecting myself from fraud. Looks like you pushed marriage a little too far, especially since you plan to end it. You're making this worse. I know this crossed a line, but I never thought you'd be this cruel." I gave a short laugh. "Cruel? I'm just the last player to realize he's been used, and this time I'm not standing still for it." On the other end, I heard a long breath. Then she softened, grasping for a lifeline. "We can settle without court. I still have your things. I can bring them back." "No need," I said. "The only thing I'm keeping is my freedom." I ended the call, not in anger, simply because there was nothing left to say. That night, Kendra texted. "The bank confirmed the studio's loans are under review. If Emily's at fault, they can repossess all equipment and the lease. Jason's forwarding every forged signature file to the credit fraud unit. Everything's on track." I poured a bourbon and looked out my hotel window. Traffic flowed down Washington Street as if nothing was happening. But somewhere in this city, a light would burn all night. 2 people realizing they'd misplayed the board. They thought I'd retreat. They don't know I've shifted from betrayed husband to the man reclaiming everything stolen. The mediation was on a Monday morning, 6th floor conference room of a downtown Phoenix civil law office. Bright but cold, like a meeting before a company's collapse. I arrived 10 minutes early. Kendra was already seated. Black suit, hairpin tight, eyes sharp as a chisel. Emily entered on time with her new lawyer, a thin man named Reed Holloway, looking more like an image consultant than trial counsel. Emily wore a pale cream dress, flawless makeup, light perfume, the same high heels I'd given her for our 10th anniversary. Today, though, she wasn't the woman who once walked in, smiling. Her face was tense, eyes puffy from sleepless nights. We opened with technicalities. Documents, asset lists, transaction reconciliations, but no one in the room could ignore the storm waiting outside. A bank representative joined via Zoom. Marta Ellis, internal audit specialist, read the findings in a flat voice. We have completed signature verification on loans under David Carson and Emily Carson. Multiple notes carry forged signatures of Mr. Carson, specifically a $72,000 equipment loan and a $58,000 business credit line. 3 software analyses and a handwriting examiner confirm they do not match the original signature. Emily froze, knuckles white on the chair. Reed whispered urgently, but she only shook her head. Martha continued, given the violations, the bank reserves the right to pursue criminal charges for credit fraud and unlawful use of marital status. For now, we await any civil settlement with binding restitution. I didn't look at Emily. I sat still, arms folded, feeling the silence like an unspoken verdict. Kendra set a packet on the table, voice clear and steady. Our final offer, Mrs. Emily Carson retains full ownership of the Tempe Art Studio. Equipment, furnishings, intellectual property. She keeps her personal vehicle and premarital assets. However, no alimony of any kind after divorce. Sole responsibility for all loans, credit, and spending linked to Ryan Hale, LLC, regardless of whose name appears. Agreement never to access or claim any frozen joint assets. Withdrawal of all complaints and no civil suits against Mr. David Carson in any form. Reed read line by line. Emily didn't. She stared at me, eyes heavy with something past anger, past hurt, just late recognition that the game was over. What if I don't sign? She asked, voice raspy. Kendra answered instantly. The bank will forward the file to federal financial crime investigators. Criminal prosecution is highly likely, not just for forged signatures, but for pledging marital assets to back a third party. Reed caught a sharp breath but stayed silent. Emily bowed her head, no fight left. When translating the Vietnamese text, I'll ensure I avoid using the $ symbol, as the user requested. This means writing full numbers in words, like converting 72,000 into $72,000 instead of $72,000, 0 cents. The aim here is to avoid any TTS confusion with 0 cents. Numbers should be clear and without the currency symbol as specified by the user, so I'll stick with just digits and proper wording like $72,000. She picked up the pen. 10 full seconds passed before the first letter appeared, each stroke draining what strength she had left. But at last her signature landed in the corner of page 3, a period that needed no underline. I rose without another word. As I walked by, Emily brushed my arm, just a trembling touch. I never thought you could do this, she whispered. I looked at her for the first time all meeting. And I never thought you'd dare sign my name on things that weren't yours. I walked on without looking back. In the empty hallway, my footsteps echoed, steady, unhurried. Every step peeled away another layer of the past. I felt no relief, nothing to celebrate, only one certainty. I'd taken back the right to steer my own life, and no one ever again gets to sign for me. I moved to Flagstaff on a windstill afternoon. The old wooden house sat halfway up a hill, dark red roof weather-stained, but the windows still welcomed sunlight like polite hosts. There was no iron gate, no alarm system, just a turnkey lock and a small wooden sign on the porch. We're always waiting for the coffee to brew. I bought it from an elderly couple heading to Vermont to live near their daughter. They left everything. Rocker by the fireplace, garden tools the husband once used on the tiny plot out back. This place, they said, holds you with quiet. I didn't need a poolside villa. I'd had enough of parking beside sports cars each morning and hearing empty chatter about investments or detox yoga. What I needed now was a porch wide enough for reading and a silence deep enough to hear myself. Emily moved to Santa Fe, so a mutual friend said. She opened a small art loft and posted about healing journeys and reconnecting with self. No one mentioned Ryan. He vanished like he'd never existed, left no well wishes, no statements. The Tempe studio was repossessed and marked pending liquidation less than 2 weeks after our settlement. No one asked if I felt triumphant. They thought I should be, having ended things on my terms. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt light, The deep kind of light that comes from stepping out of a windowless room you locked yourself in for 10 years. On my first Flagstaff morning, I brewed coffee with the old machine the sellers left behind. Strong, a little bitter, but not the kind of bitterness that hides pain. I carried an old novel onto the porch and realized this was the first time I read not to forget something, but simply because I wanted to. Jason dropped by that weekend with a six-pack and a fishing kit. Planning to live like a retired grandpa? He joked as he watched me trim grass with hand shears instead of a mower. No, I said. I'm living like someone who just relearned how to breathe. He looked around, nodded. Honestly, I didn't think you'd bounce back this fast. I smiled, sipped my beer. Not fast, just finally. Forgiveness isn't a gift for others. It's what you hand yourself so you can keep living without dragging their shadow. That night I sat alone on the porch, listening to insects fade in the pine woods. A breeze slid under the eaves like a lullaby. No texts, no emails, no papers to sign, no sudden calls from lawyers or banks, nobody asking, "Are you sure you're okay?" I was okay, not because everything returned to how it was, but because I quit dragging the past forward. I'd booked a trip to Yellowstone, no itinerary, no companion, just me, the old car, Jason's spare rod, and a map with a few lake cabins circled. 2 weeks maybe, 3. Maybe I wouldn't come back right away. For once, I didn't need to check my balance before deciding to live. Emily is no longer the nightmare I must wake up to forget. She's simply a chapter I've folded shut. Not because I'm weak, but because I'm strong enough to know. Freedom isn't running from pain, it's refusing to let it steer your life. From a man betrayed and financially manipulated by the wife who once vowed forever, David reversed the board with calm focus, discipline, and self-respect. He didn't retaliate with hate, but with law and quiet resolve. When it was over, he chose neither gloating nor bitterness, only freedom, a lighter heart, and full command of his own path. David's story proves that forgiveness cuts the chains of the past. It is not weakness. What's your take on David's choice? Was he too cold or perfectly right to protect himself? Share your thoughts below and follow the channel to discover more heartfelt, real-life family stories.